So other than the brain, which has about 1 trillion cells and a near infinite number of nerve endings, the stomach and the associated structures around it, specifically small intestine, large intestine, have the second most number of cells and receptors and nerve endings. Why is this important? Because it means that what we call the microbiome, in other words, the things that live inside of us, inside of the lining of our gut, that is from the duodenum, which is the very beginning of the stomach right above it, all the way through to where things end, right, in the nether regions. That whole section of the human body has the second most number of nerve endings and cells to the brain. And it's important because these nerve endings are very sensitive and they need to be well fed. And what does well fed mean? It doesn't necessarily mean quantity, although that's important too. We want to eat the right amount of stuff. But really what it means is diversity. As you can see in the background here, plenty of nature, plenty of birds. Nature itself loves diverse, rich, varied life. Well, our microbiome, as they call it, is exactly the same way. Now, most of us don't give it, our microbiome, the kind of diversity, the kind of range that it most appreciates. So let's look at a typical meal for me. So in terms of our microbiome, like I say, diversity, richness, difference is key. Look at this salad. This is something that I've started to eat really only the last couple of years when I began this journey, just emerging as a stronger version of myself. Got some onions, got some bell peppers in there, got some beautiful, rich green. Normally I go for lettuce, either lettuce or spinach. This time it's spinach. There are some mushrooms in here that you can see right there. Some tomatoes. I mentioned the onions, and I'm going to top it off with some seeds, which you can see here. These are some little bit of sesame seeds. Nice, good, healthy fats, by the way. Don't be afraid of the fats. They are good for you, gentlemen. Take a pinch of salt, pinch of some pepper, and of course I'm going to load it up with olive oil. This is my olive oil right here. Nothing wrong with that. Again, don't be afraid of the fats. The fats are good for us. That's largely what the brain is made of. And that brain and that microbiome communicate. We'll talk about it later. The brain, which has the first most number of nerve endings, and the digestive tract, which has the second most number of nerve endings, communicate in sophisticated ways. And when we give that microbiome, right, that digestive system, the diversity and the richness that it loves to have, it can operate better and communicate better with our brains. So that's the idea. By contrast, the way I used to eat, and I think the way maybe a lot of us still eat in America, would consist largely of this, right? White flour for my bread. Basically, this flour was probably 50% of what I ate because I would enjoy breads, I would enjoy pasta, I would enjoy calories largely coming from those types of substances, which is really pretty bland, as you can see, just not a lot of diversity in that type of food, not a lot of richness. So the microbiome is being starved for the type of stuff that it wants. It's like, where are the mushrooms? Where are the tomatoes? Where are the seeds? Well, here they are, with plenty of olive oil to enjoy. All right, gentlemen, to your health. Hey, guys. So we discussed this concept of eating the rainbow, right? Essentially, getting lots and lots of colors like we saw in the salad a minute ago, and really getting that richness and that difference, right? And that variety into our diets. Why? Because the gut needs it. The gut is complex. And more importantly, the gut communicates with our brain. In order to have a healthy brain, we need a healthy gut. They talk to each other. They're basically cousins. As strange as it sounds, our stomach is actually talking to our brain. So what we've been referring to as the gut or the microbiome, we're using those basically synonymously, right? But they basically are referring both to essentially the digestive system. So the digestive system or our microbiome speaks with our brain. And there are many mechanisms through which that happens, that communication, those pathways. Primarily, though, it happens through the endocrine system, which are our hormones. These hormones that course through our body are absolutely the key to how we feel, how we react, how we digest food, so many things that our hormones allow us to do. And whether we do these things in a powerful and refined way, or whether we do them in a choppy and erratic and unhealthy way, depends largely on the state of health of our gut, of our digestive system. Because like I say, it communicates with the brain, with the decision-making organ of our body. And it does this through the hormones. Now, one of the pathways that exists which allows the brain to connect with the rest of with the gut and with the microbiome has to do with something called HPA. These are three glands: the hypothalamus, which is back here, the pituitary, right around the middle of the brain, and the adrenal glands. We've all heard of the adrenal glands. Those are the things that pump out that adrenaline when you have that fight or flight, right? You hear a thump in the night, boom, you're ready for action. And that's controlled by the adrenal glands, which in turn, again, are communicating with the brain. In order for these three to work together nicely, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal glands, in order for these parts of the endocrine system to work nicely together, for these hormones to flow in the proper way and at the proper time and in the proper proportions, we want this axis of these three glands. It's called the HPA axis. We want them to be well fed, properly fed, and in the right amounts, right? And with the right substances. And that's why that microbiome, that gut health, is so important, because it's literally helping this mechanism, this HPA axis, to run smoothly so that our brain can send the proper signals, again, through the endocrine system, through our glands, so that it can send the proper signals to our entire body. HPA axis also helps us regulate things like our immune system, our appetite regulation. Who doesn't want to have that? Who doesn't want to have control over their own appetite, right, in a healthy way? And finally, our emotional response. Like I've mentioned earlier, we want to keep the body is incredible. It actually tells us how tightly wound we're going to be. And we can develop this and nurture this over time so that we are not wound up when we don't need to be. These are some of the many benefits that come from having a very healthy brain and a healthy relationship between our gut and our brain, because they do talk to one another. Now, in addition to some of these nutritional things we talked about, there are ways to supplement. But again, there's no replacement whatsoever for good, proper, healthy nutrition. But some of the supplementation that we can work with that helps the brain are things like the B complex vitamins, B6, B12, different types of B vitamins. Ginseng is something. Magnesium, actually very helpful. It helps relax the brain, keep our cortisol nice and low. Again, that's the stress hormone. Turmeric. There are a lot of others, but these are some of the examples of substances that we can supplement with that are healthy. Of course, talk to your doctor. Don't go overboard, but these are all natural substances that you can get and that help that brain to stay nice and healthy and strong. Hey guys, so let's talk about feeding the brain. The first step was, as we saw, right, getting a nice, rich, variety-filled, rainbow-like set of nutrients in our daily diet. The other one is fats, frankly. Fats have been given a bad rap. The brain is actually made of 50% fat. Did you know that? So how could we possibly eschew or avoid something in our diets when we know that our brain, the most important organ in our bodies, is made primarily of fat? So it's incredible. So the second thing that we're going to want to eat in order to take care of that brain are fats, and that's omega-3s, which are found in meats, especially healthy, if you can get them, grass-fed meats or organic meats at the very least, and olive oils and coconut oils and avocado oils and and ghee and butter. All these kinds of oils are the very healthy fats that your brain absolutely loves. And by feeding your brain these kinds of fats, and by having a nice, rich, diverse diet, what you're allowing yourself to do is create a situation where your body keeps down your inflammation. And there are inflammatory markers that doctors can measure, things like I've got a note here, C-reactive proteins. These are markers that doctors look at, and I'm no doctor, but doctors look at this stuff to see, are you inflamed? And that's usually the first sign of disease, that internal inflammation. And one of the things that helps the body keep down its inflammation are at the cellular level. There are these little guys called mitochondria. The mitochondria are organelles. Essentially, it's a small organ, but it's inside of a cell. We've got billions of these things in our bodies, and including in the cells of our brains, which is where we have the most cells. So when we've got these mitochondria functioning properly, they do a very, very wonderful function for us, which is called apoptosis. They basically kill the cells in our body that are ready to die or that are defective or that have just outlived their usefulness. It's actually the same process, this apoptosis, that allows the fingers of a child's hand to come out not webbed, but separate, right? Because the cells that were in between here died, and that created that space, that division. Well, this process of apoptosis continues throughout our lives. It's healthy, it's necessary, and it can be interfered with if the mitochondria aren't being taken care of. And the mitochondria love fat. So that's one of the many reasons why we want to get those healthy fats in our diets. Don't avoid them. Go for it, particularly if, like I say, you're getting it from grass-fed meat and the very healthy fats that I mentioned, like some of these oils. So the other positive side to feeding the brain, the very, very specific things that happen there, in addition to getting rid of these cells and can cause all kinds of dysfunction, including cancer and Alzheimer's and all kinds of metabolic dysfunctions. Some of the other advantages to taking care of that brain by giving it the fats, by giving it the rich food, the rich variety of foods, right, is we're going to avoid some of the cognitive decline. Who wants to be at 67 years old starting to forget shit, right? We don't want that. We don't want to end up with Alzheimer's. We don't want to end up with even cognitive decline, even if it's not as bad as Alzheimer's. You don't want that. You want to be as sharp and strong and powerful mentally when you're 70 as you were when you're 20. And there's no reason we can't have that. So these are some of the advantages to taking care of our brains now in our 40s and 50s and 60s. These things work together to create, help us create and regulate our testosterone. Who doesn't think that's important? Our growth hormone. We make this stuff naturally, men. And to keep our cortisol low. Cortisol is called the stress hormone, right? So who wants to be a nervous Nelly? Or who wants to have that itchy feeling all the time? No, we want to be ready to spring into action when needed. We don't want to be constantly in a state of high alert because that drains our adrenal glands. It drains our energy as men. It's not good for us. You want to be relaxed like a cat, right? At least that's what I want. I want to be relaxed like a little kitty cat. But at any moment, when an opportunity comes along, whatever it is, if it's business, if it's life, if it's meeting a woman, whatever the hell it is, right? You want to have that energy in there and be able to pounce on those opportunities in life. But you don't want to be so wound up all the time. And again, it's bad for the adrenals and really the rest of the endocrine system. And all these things are regulated by the HPA axis, which is very, very, and that's one of the reasons why it's very, very important to keep that brain healthy. Okay, man. So let's nourish, feed, supplement, and protect our brains because it's really the most important thing we've got. I invite you to join the conversation with myself and other men and what we're all doing to find that inner savage and bring them to life. Not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of those around us, people we care about. All right, man, stay strong.